He hit the button. He hit the button, guys. Henry hit the button, and we're live. And today we're touching on an incredibly sensitive topic. So, I'll ask in advance that the chat is deeply respectful here because we're going to talk about, a marginalized group in society that's been deeply offended by racist attacks. And of course, that marginalized group is white men who eat tacos. And I'll just speak as a representative from the white guy community. It's been a really trying week. It's just been a lot for us. We deal with a lot in general, but it's been really tough for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about. And we will get into this and explain what's going on. If you don't, there's been drama in the past week because vice presidential candidate Tim Walz, who I was already in on, but he put out a summer playlist this week that included one of my favorite Grateful Dead songs on it. We'll watch the clip in a few that spawned all of this. But Tim Walz, in a conversation with Kamala Harris, talked about. Thanks, Sean. Hey, Sean, glad you're here. Glad we got to do that. And just a reminder as well, you can email us at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. But Tim Walz described his taco night experience with the term white guy tacos, and basically was like, I just like meat and cheese, not a lot of spice. In Minnesota, black pepper is spicy. Now, as someone with some family in Minnesota, I have heard my Minnesota uncle tuning in from Disney World. Wow, thanks for tuning in from there. We have a video coming out that's kind of on Disney, but I've heard my uncle from Minnesota make the joke that, and I've heard many Midwesterners make this. My dad used to say that as well. He's from Illinois, but that like for old guys from the Midwest, black pepper is too spicy. That's just like a thing that Midwestern dads and grandpas and uncles say. And Tim Wall said that, and it led to drama and chaos in the white community. I realized as I'm talking right now, I normally share the link to the streams over on Discord, and I didn't do that yet. So I'm going to share the link real quick. As I do that,
I'll bump on the socials.
We got to bump the socials. Reminding everyone that if you ever, dreamt of being on a Discord server with a bunch of Wisecrack freaks, we have one. You get on the Discord server if you join the Patreon. So, we have a Patreon. You can check it out. Another reminder that we did start Sean says that his aunt that lives in Minnesota thinks ketchup is spicy. That adds up. We started the Byung-Chul Han reading group over on Patreon. It's at the Wisecrack University level, so you can check that out. I'll try to drop some hints, teasers, little bits of that as well for folks who can't spring for that level. I understand that is like a good amount of money. Hopefully, I'll make it worth it by giving you a good amount of extra content as well. But yeah, so we want to talk about that discourse. We'll talk about some other stuff. It's kind of just funny. Let's start with this. Henry and myself will get this started, but I'm very curious for everyone in the chat. I just want to hear everyone's ideal taco. I want you to lay it out for me. I want you, and if you're in the chat, we're talking what filling do you have? What sort of tortilla are we rocking? What sort of sauces? And don't be ridiculous. Conceive of this ideal taco relative to what is available at standard taco establishments. Okay, no one, don't say anything crazy. I mean, some of you are going to say things crazy because you're crazy people that can't be contained by, the logic of Western society. But oh no, Chris Maverick's power is out, but yes, and when the power is out, you just gotta watch the stream. Um, Henry, what is your ideal taco?
There's so many. I'm torn because, like, I mean, if you go with a flour tortilla, there's certain routes I want to take to put on. If you go with a corn tortilla, there's things I want to go for. I don't even mind crispy white guy tacos every now and then. I think there's such a versatile range of everything across the American continent. But if I had to hone it in, like an al pastor on corn, or
Hmm.
like a steak fajita or brisket on flour. That's a bit more
Hmm.
Texan.
Oh,
Uh,
it's very Texan.
those
Yeah.
are kind of my two bases. I tend to like a bit of avocado in there, some cilantro, some lime. Um, Not very big on like lettuce or tomato or really like a lot of veggies. I tend to like meat with a little bit of like a garnish. Again, the cilantro, maybe some onion.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm craving. Off the top of my head, like yeah, like an al pastor on corn, or like some sort of brisket or steak fajita on flour. Those tend to be my go-tos.
I like that. I think that's solid. I see some people coming in the chat with their tacos. I'm gonna start by copying Henry. I really think my ideal is, yeah, a corn tortilla, al pastor, so pork, cilantro and white onion, and then I normally like to do one splash of the sort of like medium red salsa, one splash of like a tomatillo salsa. And I think for me, that's it. I like a spice level that's right at like, I'm trying to think of how to describe this. I like how really spicy salsa feels, but if I'm eating tacos, I want to be able to be at a spice level that I can enjoy it without necessitating a beverage. And I'll speak really practically here. Some of the places I like to get tacos, you might be like a truck or a stand where I'm holding a paper plate in my hand, and the other hand, it serves the purpose of getting the taco into my mouth. So if I necessitate sips of a beverage every bite, I'm putting things down. It doesn't work. So that's kind of where I'm at right there. We got some great taco stuff coming in here as well, but I think that I don't mind the white guy taco though. I think there's something fun and nostalgic about a crispy corn tortilla,
Yeah.
lightly spiced ground beef, some cheddar cheese, a little pico on top. It's fun, but I don't know anyone who would eat that and act as if that is in any way resembling, you know, a an authentic Mexican taco any more than someone would eat like Cincinnati chili with spaghetti and think they were having Italian food, you know?
Yeah, it's just a matter of recognizing the many ethnicities across both American continents and the many forms of taco they provide.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Um, I want to look at the cut article with you. I'm gonna have to 12-foot that bitch. Give me 1 second. Look at I like all those taco options we have here. Now, I do think, we'll talk about this some more. And then let's think. Is the best way for us to look at the clip to pull up the YouTube video or just look at it via the tweet?
Lip, I have the. Are you talking about the Ian
So the
Haworth?
the well, I think the initial clip where Walls describes the taco. So I have a tweet link to it. Here I'll send. Oh, is that on the watch together? Oh yeah, yeah. Here, yeah. Just to make sure, is it the same one that I just sent? Awesome. Yeah, guys, we're gonna do our hyper technical thing. But we kind of just floated into this one. This is Wisecrack's Case of the Mondays. I'm Michael Burns. I'm here with producer Henry. We do this every Monday. This is our you just get started on the week stream, try to talk about something fun, have a nice time, interact with the chat, who are all of our best friends, except for one of you, and you know who you are. Um, I want to give a shout out to everyone who watched Wednesday's stream on Raygun, who called me out for one weird. So I made a weird comment. I talked about how Australia was racist, and we got some great feedback. And we'll actually, maybe at the end, I'll look at a couple emails on this that I got, especially from our great friend Aoife, our Australian correspondent. And most people are like, yeah, Australia is a racist country, but I made this weird comment about how it's racist because there's no black people there. And that was like a weird thing to say. The implication that any place where there's not black people is racist. And of course, one could say then like, hey, Michael, why do you think there's black people in America? How did they get there? How do you think that happened? How did that process take place? You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that some people pointed out that that was weird. And I especially appreciate the people that were like, you are right that we are a racist continent, but that one thing you said is weird. As always, we don't, this is not scripted. If you thought this was scripted, Jesus Christ. But we rock a little off the cuff, and sometimes I say something a little goofy. So thank you so much for calling me in that discourse. So, a reminder as well, we do have a stream partner. It's our friends over at Yes Please Coffee. I'll tell you more about them in a second, but just a quick shout out now. I have 2 new bags of Yes Please, guys. I've only tried this one so far. I guess it's Cerro La Bruja from Oaxaca, Mexico. Speaking of the origin of tacos. And then the mix right here, this is our new mix. It's the Side Hustle. What's this one have? It's from Guatemala, Peru, and Mexico. Chiapas, Mexico. There's a great documentary on Chiapas and the Zapatistas that I've seen before. And, as always, I have the August 9th edition of their zine. There's the playlist on the back if anyone wants to, pause the video and scan the thing and see what tunes they have. There's the Apple Music. There's the Spotify. You can check that playlist out. We'll talk more about them in a second. That's our official coffee partner. They make really great coffee. If you use code Wisecrack, you get 20% off. More on that later. So let's start with the inciting incident. A clip that some would say has had the effect of D-Day, 9/11, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, a number of things. And this is where Tim Walz says things about tacos. So count us in, and I guess I'll click play on one, Henry.
Like I have white guy tacos and
What does
like
that
black,
mean? Like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
pretty much
Mayonnaise?
ground beef and cheese.
That's
and
okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
Oh.
Here's the deal. No, they said
Here's
to be
the
careful
deal.
and let her know this, that black pepper is the top of the spice level in Minnesota,
I'm the first vice president, I believe, who has ever grown chili peppers.
I'm trying to
that.
expand
We'll
my
figure that-
my food knowledge.
You know what? We've got some cantaloupes. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. It's a fun clip. I like the way his affect is very funny there. So that is the clip. Now, if you have not seen that clip before, I'd be curious. Do you see that and think to yourself, I'm upset, I'm angry? So Mellow Jealous said her quip is actually funny. I'm someone that does think when she speaks, when she's like trying, it can be a little much. But I thought that was, I found her, that's maybe the most likable I've ever found her. And Porkins with Red Hot Chili Peppers, shout out. So someone said, what was that supposed to be controversial? Henry, what was your initial reaction upon seeing that clip? Or did you not see it until the reaction began?
So, being in Texas, there's always like everybody's pretty self-aware of like Tex-Mex being different than Mexican, and northern Texas is a bit closer to the Midwest. This just seems like casual conversation I'd hear, like just ribbing about. It didn't seem out of the ordinary to me. Maybe I'm around a lot of Tejanos and just like mixed communities where this kind of conversation happens all the time, but I didn't think much of it.
Me either. Yeah. And as a, partially Midwestern white male of a certain age I remember going to eat Tex-Mex food, or like, that kind of style of food with my father as a kid and him not being able to handle it. My aforementioned Minnesota uncle, I took him to Chipotle for the first time 15 years ago, and he got the mild salsa, which is more or less tomatoes, onions, and cilantro. And I remember having him bite and being like, "Whoa, Mikey, that's hot," and just being like, "No, it's not, man." So when I see that reaction, I'm like, I don't think that's crazy at all. But I think what we're seeing here, and of course, we try to have conversations here that are fun, but have a point. I think, in a way, the reaction to this shows a couple of things. One, the way in which the desire to be offended or the desire to react can force like a hermeneutic or sort of like an epistemological view on society in which you run everything through a filter of how can I be offended or how can I be attacked by this. I think it's also showing to an extent the desperation of a certain contingent of right-wing cultural commentators in America who I think, and this might not be the whole case, I think they really got shook by like Tim Walz calling them weird. And, you know, it's like in middle school, maybe elementary school. You can imagine little kids and one kid says, "You're weird." And another kid says, "No, you're weird." And they have this fight about who's weird. Um, and it just kind of devolves from there. And I think we might see this happening with adult men. Now, some of the reactions are very funny. So we can look at this Cut article from Olivia Craighead, who Olivia Craig is good. She sometimes goes on the Blank Check movie podcast and is really great on that. I didn't realize this was her piece until then. Shout out to Blank Check, a very, very good movie podcast. Speaking of good movie podcast, Show Me the Meaning is coming back very soon. Okay. No, your face is weird. So Craig writes, conservative men with posting obsessions always need something new to yell about. And for the past 24 hours, they've decided it's Tim Walz's taco preferences. Sure, why not? Their faux outrage spawned from a video released by the Kamala Harris campaign in which Walz tells Harris that he enjoys white guy tacos. Yeah, I mean, the faux outrage. Like, I don't know if anyone will look at some of the reactions to this. It's hard to believe that anyone would actually be offended by this.
Yeah.
Like, it's truly an inoffensible comment. Like, there's nothing, and I'm going to be bold here, I don't think there's anything offensive about it. But we'll look at some of these reactions. So it says, after Harris asked if that meant he put some mayonnaise and tuna in his tacos. I like how Craighead in parentheses in the article says funny, because I think it gets at the fact that none of us find Kamala Harris funny, but she actually said something funny. Like the way she slowly is like, what do you mean? Like mayonnaise and tuna? He explains that a white guy taco is ground beef and cheese. There's actually a taco chain, and someone correct me if I'm wrong here. It's probably not just in Minnesota. Have you ever heard of this place, Henry Taco John's?
Nope.
So it's a chain. I know it's in Minnesota for sure. You know, the traditional Mexican name, John. But it's called Taco John's, and they make that sort of taco there. So she asked me any flavor. He says black pepper. It's top of the spice level in Minnesota. It's a funny exchange that makes both Harris and Walz seem like normal people capable of having a normal conversation. I doubt the Trump Vance campaign could put out a similar video. I digress. Speaking of Trump and Vance, I don't know if anyone saw this. Vance gave a speech where he was like, and I'm not exaggerating this, he says that, you know, Harris is out there giving speeches about joy. She's dancing and having fun while children starve. While they laugh and clap, families can't afford to, like this sort of thing, which is really insane, kind of implying that like she can't have fun or they can't have positive campaign rallies when people are struggling. Especially funny when, you know, millionaires say that. But they're losing it over there. The white guys of the Republican Party have decided that Walz is being racist toward them, and they've been throwing a hissy fit about it. I'm going to make a bold claim now that we can discuss, and I'm curious what people think. Oh, so Taco John's. People are acknowledging the Taco John's is a thing. Sandhill Farmer has acknowledged it. Penny Waldrop says it's the closest thing to their office. Okay, they're popping up all over Milwaukee. Rotterdam, I've not seen Matt Walsh's video. If you know where it is, shoot us a link. Slumlord, thanks for calling in from work. Or we could try to find the Matt Walsh reaction. But if someone has the link to that, feel free to shoot it over in the chat and we'll keep an eye out for it. Awesome. So making a bold claim now. And I'm genuinely curious what people think about this one. I basically think that you can't be racist towards white people. I'm not defending that with any logic right now, but I basically think it's impossible to be racist towards white people, or that there could be like systemic white racism. And I definitely do not think there's a universe where Tim Walz making a comment like that can be conceived of as racist. Like a white guy from Minnesota saying white guys in Minnesota don't like spicy food and we eat tacos like this, said in a clearly self-deprecating manner, that is not racist. I mean, let's see. I'm going to do something on my end real quick. Let's look up the definition of racism. Characterized by showing prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. I do not think white guys are a minority or marginalized in Minnesota or the Midwest. More generally, but correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so yeah, I guess I'm thinking systemically here. So first quote says, "This isn't cute. Walls is being used as a clown to mock white people," wrote Fox News columnist David Marcus on X. "If you're a white person who was offended by Walls' comment, let us know why in the comments, and we won't make fun of you, won't be mean. I'm genuinely curious if you are a white person and you were genuinely offended by this. You found something about this disrespectful. You have permission to let us know. And if you're in the chat, if someone actually does this, you can't be mean to them because we want to hear them out. So if Walls doesn't like spicy food, that's fine, but it has nothing to do with being a white guy." Something I think is kind of funny about this is a lot of the weird white people who are obsessed with like European ancestry and European culture. Every country they reference as a paradigm of their grand culture has the blandest food in the world. You know what I mean? Like England doesn't have spicy food. Scotland doesn't have spicy food. Ireland doesn't have spicy food. Scandinavia doesn't have spicy food. Germany doesn't have spicy food. Austria doesn't have spicy food. The Netherlands doesn't have spicy food. How many places have spicy food?
One of
Like
the things that
they
drives
don't have spice.
Yeah, one of the things that drives me crazy about this is I feel like this type of joke or joke structure or observation has been like pretty played out in stand-up since as long as I can recall as a kid born in the 1990s. I even remember like The Simpsons having, riffs on comedians doing white people do X, black people do Y in the 90s. It was tired by then. So, I mean, I don't know. This just seems like culturally, it seems familiar.
Yeah. I guess it would be one thing, and to be clear, I don't think this is the case. It would be one thing if, let's say, like, a comedian of color was like, white people are so crazy, they think black pepper is spicy. But I still think in comedy and in sort of like, if we're thinking about it in terms of racism, there's the subject positionality thing. And I think that it is hard to be seen as being oppressive or racist in a society where you are a structurally like subjugated or marginalized group, if that makes sense. But that's what Fox News columnist David Marcus thought, and says noted right-wing conspiracy theorist Mike Cernovich. I forgot about Cernovich. If you guys don't know who he is, he's real out there. Was so offended by the comment that he dug up Walls' award-winning hot dish recipe. For those of you who don't know what hot dish is, it's a Minnesota style thing where you just have like a casserole dish, and everything has to go in the one sort of pot. And he used chili powder and paprika. Damn, it's hard to see how Walls will ever come back from this. Like this is where people are at. This is where people are at now, that it's owning a politician to prove that in 2016 he had a recipe with some chili powder and paprika that won a contest. Cernovich later doubled down and said, white people don't use seasoning as a trope. There's no setup. It's not a bit. What? Would he like saying a white guy jumping around in blackface is funny? You need more than a costume? What? He's a pathological liar who lies about anything is the punchline? People are losing it. People are real. Oh, there's one tweet I kind of want to see if I can find, which is really insane. And I think it was from Cernovich, but if it doesn't come, I'll tell you what I think this tweet said, and maybe I'm wrong, and I just made this up in my head. But when Kamala Harris said that she was one of the first person to grow chilies in the White House, Cernovich fact-checked and pointed out that actually Thomas Jefferson was the first person to grow chilies in the White House. Someone responded to that by saying something like, "Are you sure it was Thomas Jefferson who did it?" Is Thomas Jefferson the one who was growing the chilies at the White House? Jacob Sanchez gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much for doing that. We really appreciate it. It's awesome of you to do. Lord of the chat. We love gifting memberships. It's a sick thing to do. Gift memberships to prove that you're not advocating anti-white racism. But yeah, very, very funny as well that someone had to like fact checked Harris's claim there. Yeah, Craighead writes here, is he saying that blackface can be funny if you put a little effort into the routine? How did we get it from a guy saying he likes the kind of tacos you make with a kit from the grocery store? That's also clutch. He's literally just describing an old El Paso taco kit. Curiously, it's not just men on the right who are upset. This is Brian Shea. I really like Tim Walls, but as someone who also really likes cooking with flavor, I will tell you that black pepper is far from the top spice level in Minnesota. Listen, here's the deal, guys. I believe, like, there's, of course, people in Minnesota like spice. Minnesota has a huge Southeast Asian population. Like, there's tons of people from around the world that live in Minnesota, at least the Minneapolis area. But, like, I've spent a lot of time in that state. Okay, the longest I've ever, let me think. I don't know what it counts to say you've lived in a place, but I spent a couple of stretches of about 3 months living in Minnesota. I've gone there almost yearly my entire life. I have family there. It's one of my favorite places in the world. It is not a place that you think of when you think about spicy food. A lot of dining establishments in non-Minneapolis, St. Paul areas in Minnesota are not places where you get spicy food. The upper Midwest in general is not a region that we associate with spicy food. We think about the upper Midwest, in the chat, let me know what you guys think, but we think of, things like hot dish and casseroles and bratwurst and sausages and hot dogs. We think of, beer. We think of cheese. We think of cheese curds. We think of hamburgers with melted cheese in the inside of them, the Juicy Lucy. That's like a Minnesota food. So, it's one of those weird things to be like, that's not true. I'm a guy from Minnesota and we love spicy food. It's like, no, you don't. I mean, you do in particular, but come on. So then Craig ends by saying, I think it might be time to put a moratorium on all posting until everyone can understand what a joke is, which I think is true. Now I'm going to shoot over. Do you want to pull up? Do you have the link to the Ben Shapiro tweet? All right. This one is my favorite. This one to me, guys, really says it all. And before, Juicy Lucy. You guys know what that is. Someone said Upper Midwest is mustard, mayo, and cheese. Horseradish. Yeah, horseradish is like white people spice, I guess.
In Indiana, I remember going to a Polish buffet, and there was a lot of good food there. Not a lot of spicy food.
Yeah. And I'm not denying that there's a lot of like nice, filling.
I love bratwurst. I
foods
love
in there.
all kinds of potato dishes. It's just, different.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know there's some Matthew Jacobs. There's tons of Laotian people in Minnesota. And I think that's the good stuff when we talk about spice and we talk about who's brought some flavor to Minnesota. Now, before we get into Ben Shapiro's response fully, I do want to talk about our stream sponsor. And that is our friends over at Yes Please Coffee. I think I told you last week I hung out and got coffee with the founder of Yes Please Coffee. You've heard me say this before. They make incredibly delicious coffee. They do not pay us to say this. We just have a deal where, like, if you order it and you use our code, we get a very marginal kickback. And I mean, that's like very marginal. It's not like a big amount or anything like that. But they're really great. They have a beautiful website we can pull up and very easy to order. Their coffee comes in bags that looks like this. It's very pretty. Here's a cool thing about Yes Please, and I found this interesting when talking to Tony, the founder, is he was describing how, having worked in coffee for years, so much of the time you spend roasting coffee goes to big batches that go to, restaurants and coffee shops that are just going to kind of grind your maiden blend and serve black coffee and not put a lot of care into it. And his thing was like, well, I want to treat coffee like wine. I want to put a bunch of care into specific roast so that people that love making coffee at home can make really good coffee. Like it's totally targeted for at-home coffee people. And he described how it's not the best business venture because it's hard to make a lot of money that way. But it's truly delicious. I think if you are a coffee person, if you're someone who drinks coffee, it's really worth trying. It's a little bit more expensive than what you would get at like a grocery store or something, but a bag of this is the cost of like a few cups of coffee at a modern American coffee shop at least. So do check it out. We're going to start doing some giveaways soon with Yes Please. But in the meantime, head over there, use code Wisecrack, check it out. I'm grifting hard because my white palate can only handle coffee. That's spicy for me. Now, my favorite response to this whole thing comes from American Hero, someone who refers to himself as America's #1 ex-rapper. That's a real thing. Failed screenwriter, and someone who refuses to give his wife the oral. Because Ben Shapiro said, you can't give your wife the oral, and his wife, who's a doctor, said vaginas are supposed to be bone dry. I mean, what does it say if your wife, who's a doctor, is like, oh, Ben, definitely don't go down there. It's real dry. You might hurt it, Come on. So Ben Shapiro said, see, folks, it's funny that white people hate spices. Not racist at all. Just funny. Jesus Christ, Ben. Come on, man. He says, fact check. Europeans like spices so much that they literally got involved in several hundred years of war in order to determine control of the spice trade. What is wrong with you? Benjamin, what is wrong with you? That your response to this is to defend Europeans getting involved in hundreds of years of war? I wonder who they got involved with the wars with. I wonder what happened. I wonder what sort of countries they went to. I wonder what happened in those places. I wonder if those places ended up flying British flags. I wonder if those places had elements of their language and culture abolished for the sake of spices and goods more cheaply coming from those places. My guy is literally defending colonization and war to prove that Europeans like spices so much. Also, if you're like an American who was maybe you're born in Europe, maybe even your parents are European, but we got to stop this whole I don't know, pointing to European culture as our magical thing. I just find this so funny and weird that also it's these people think that they're funny, and by these people think that they're funny again, and we watched a bit of it. There's a great some more news video on this. Ben Shapiro and his friends at the Daily Wire, they want to be Hollywood people. They want to make movies and TV shows, but no one wanted them to make stuff because they're not talented. It's not because they're too conservative. There's tons of conservatives who make movies and television shows, guys. Our networks are full, shouts to Jackson at Skip Intro, of propaganda shows that are all about how cops rip and the law rips, and there's shows about how cowboys and traditional families rip. All of these things exist. Tim Allen gets to make comedy shows about how Bass Pro Shop is the Vatican City of America. But the way that it's just this isn't funny. It's not racist. And just that he's owning them by showing that Europeans like so much, like spice so much, they got involved in the spice trade. I do like one of the responses I see under this is someone who responded by saying, this really seems like something a stupid baby would say. But just wild that people get this worked up about this sort of stuff, guys.
It feels like a bit of a gasp because there's a lack of both because Harris hasn't said much on policy, but also because under neoliberalism, it's all capitalist policy. There's not many differences they can hone in on. So this does feel like it's trying to pick a scab and make it bleed more than it actually ever would.
Yeah, I just don't know if people really truly care about this. I'll repost it. I know we sent this through before. There's another, and I don't really know who this guy is, a tweet response by Ian Hayworth, who has 40,000 followers and has a British flag and an American flag in his thing. This is great. So he says, Tim Walz, I have white guy tacos. He says, gotta love the casual anti-white racism that would cause riots if it was done in reverse by a Republican. And then he gives an example. JD Vance, I have black guy tacos. Guys, what would the difference be? What would the main difference be, we think, between Tim Walz saying, I have white guy tacos, and JD Vance saying, I have black guy tacos? My brain is made up of Duty and Plato. So I can't understand what the difference would be. Oh wait, it's pretty, pretty obvious one there. Pretty obvious one there.
I'm thrown off by
Um,
this because Vance is going around breaking down white ethnicities like it's 1870, and that the Irish are to blame for certain things, and the Germans are to blame for others, and the Polish
yeah.
just can't help themselves. Like, it's such a weird acknowledgement on one hand that whiteness is a construct, but then when it's convenient to believe it's real, it's real.
Yeah. I just, and you know, this is kind of like where we're at. And I'll say this for all the sides of the political spectrum in America right now. Like, no one's talking about policy or ideas. One party is just like, our vibe is that we're like kind of chill and funny or fun. And the other party's vibe is like, we're really upset and pissed and kind of racist. Um, it's just a weird one. Cause again, like, especially someone like a Ben Shapiro who paints himself as like a very like smart boy. Um, I mean, couldn't he do better than that? Let me see if I can find the Matt Walsh thing, just 'cause I'm curious. I'm gonna search for Matt Walsh,
Excellent
Tim Walsh
comment, Chris
taco.
Maverick.
I missed it because I'm not looking, but I bet it's really good. Um, oh, let's see. I'm glad that people just don't show me Matt Walsh stuff because let's see, is this it? Okay. Matt Walsh said here, I'll send you, and and I bet he's probably said something in a video in one of his really cool shows as well. His main things, he said, crazy that a presidential candidate can just casually let out some blatant anti-white racism and no one cares. Oh yeah, it says, imagine if Donald Trump said that a black guy, oh my God, I'm not saying that out loud. Are you seeing this one that I just sent? Holy shit. He said, imagine if Donald Trump said that a black guy taco was made with fried chicken and watermelon.
That changes like the onus from being like self-deprecating to pointing at someone else. Like that's what all of these keep doing. I don't get why they keep running
Oh,
with the black guy taco hypothetical because it just destroys the self-deprecating act, which
yeah.
like
Well, it's
is
like,
kind of like the crux of Waltz's whole bit.
well, of course, the deal here is like Walls is a white guy. He's an aw shuck, self-deprecating Midwesterner. He's referring to the type of taco that you get in the old El Paso box at the grocery store that lots of like suburban and rural white people eat. And he's doing it, like Henry's pointing out, in a self-deprecating way. If Donald Trump, who is not black, said I like black guy tacos, if he said that, he's already making a weirdly racist comment about a group that he is not a part of, not in a self-deprecating, but in like a weirdly racist way. And then if he said it was made with fried chicken and watermelon, he's then intentionally picking on foods that are associated with racist tropes to construct the racist thing. I don't, you know, do we think that people like Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro, how much of this is like, are they really this dumb, or do they know what they're doing and they just say this stuff to get like people upset? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
what?
it feels pretty astroturf to me.
Yeah. Uh, um, Henry, I've gotten some emails for this ever since we had to sign up for the Daily Wire to watch that Jordan Peterson thing. Um, Matt Walsh has a new movie coming out that's called Am I Racist?
Yeah, I keep getting mailers for that too.
That it seems like the gist of it is like he does a Borat-y type thing and dresses up as like a liberal or something to see if he is racist. He's the same guy that made the movie What is a Woman? I saw that it's showing at some theaters in Los Angeles. I'm tempted to, I don't know. Part of me thought it'd be funny to go see it and comment on it, but I wouldn't want someone to see me there. But yeah, I don't know. This is the sort of guy we're talking about. Um, what's the origin of the? You know, I'm gonna ask a really dumb question, Henry, and everyone in chat, get ready to realize that I'm dumb. Um, what's the origin of the term astroturfing? Where does that come from?
I mean, fake grass is what I know
Give it
it
to you?
from, like quite literally, like, plastic soil you throw down to appear you have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
green lawn.
Ah, okay. So the turf is like the appearance of some sort of real argument.
Right.
Okay, you guys got to remember, I forget if I describe myself as a smart person or a dumb smart person. Um, but yeah, I just
The
hope
opposite
people
of
don't fall for
grassroots.
this stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's smart. I just hope people don't fall for this stuff, and I hope that when people get mad, they get mad at this stuff. Um, you
It's not
know,
even like sustainable as a criticism going into election season. You know what I mean? Like, can you seriously hold weight with this on a debate stage? I guess we'll see if they try.
yeah, these debates are going to be tough. It's just it's very dumb. It's very weird, and I still anytime someone brings up racism against white people. You can maybe say someone's making fun of white people. You can say someone is, I guess, specifying or universalizing the particularity of white behavior, but to imply that someone's saying that because they get the old El Paso box that they're racist is a lot. It's a lot and it's weird and they should stop acting this weird if they don't want to be weird. And I'll say this, I kind of want a white guy taco now. Doesn't that sound good, everyone? Just some bland ground beef and a
Yeah, I
crispy,
mean,
slightly stale tortilla with some melted cheese on top. That sounds pretty good.
go to Taco Bell. It's everywhere for a reason. Also, I
Yeah.
mean, to be clear, I don't think this is like substantive policy or anything from the Democrats either, and it is just sort of
No.
like
It's content.
cultural play, just kind of like, hey, hello, fellow kids, we make the jokes too. Um, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily defending them on this point's gonna mean that. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, so just I want to at the end we'll look at a couple emails we got. If you do want to hit us up, reminder, you can hit us up at wisecracklive666 @gmail.com. And if you have suggestions for stuff to talk about, if you have questions, if you have stuff you want to share with us, you can always shoot us an email there. The Game Clown says, so the facts are bigger than feelings. People are really in their feelings about being called weird and flavorless. Thanks for the positive and thoughtful content. Yeah, the facts and I just you don't set yourself up for success when your whole claim is that facts don't care about your feelings because you're trying to then you set the goalpost such that everything you say has to be coldly mathematically logical and any angry or emotive response you have to something falls outside the bounds of that. Like these guys clearly got butt hurt by this.
yeah, huge
Because
kind of knee jerk response.
yeah, let's see. Rudy said, I disagree. Racism against white people is real. I'm Mexican and I've had to call other Mexicans out when they're being racist towards white friends. I guess, Rudy, so like, for example, you know, I'm not, I don't think we're saying that people who are not white can't more or less like, let's call it
You
talk shit
can still
about
be
white
like
people.
discriminatory on an individual basis and have personal biases and
Yeah.
hatreds.
Well, yeah, John says this in the chat. I think so. I think Rudy, the issue is like systemic, right? That someone, you know, could make fun of me in a way that's like, oh, you do this like a white person or whatever. This is gonna shock you guys. I've been made fun of for those things before. Often like in good nature, but but I guess the difference there, Rudy, would be that like I know I'm only gonna say America, for example. Existing as a white person in America means that systemically you are you participate in like the universal subject type. And by that I mean when we say like human or all men are created equal or something like that, the man in question there is this sort of like archetypal white male. So, you know, as a white person, you're probably not going to get discriminated against on that basis, right? You could be like a white person with face tattoos or a white guy that, has your motorcycle gang jacket on and maybe that gets you some looks or whatever. However, in America, simply by being, let's say, of Mexican origin or descent, or simply by being a black person, you could face discrimination that is built into the system. So I guess that's kind of the difference we're getting at there. Hopefully that makes some sense. But I appreciate you sharing that, because I did say I want to know if people had some opinions on that. So let's just look at the one Twitter thing that you pulled up from Chief Nerd, the 2-minute clip of Bernie on Theo Von. Probably seems like the easiest way to do this. Oh, sorry. Let me go to that. I forgot to pull that up. Guys, I'm really shitting the bed. Watch together. Why, there we go. Copying link. So, yeah, awesome. Yeah, guys, so we're gonna look at Bernie Sanders went on the Theo Von podcast. Here's all I know about Theo Von is that he was on a reality show, like one of the MTV ones or something, like
Yeah,
Real
he
World
was
or Road
on a
Rules.
few. He's done some stand-up. He's quite the podcaster now.
Yeah, he strikes me as maybe like a slightly, I don't really mean this in a mean way, but I don't know how else to say this. A slightly dumber, slightly less offensive Joe Rogan. What I mean by that is he seems like someone who like talks to lots of people, and sometimes I'll see a clip where someone who's like pretty fash is on a show, and his vibe is sort of like, I don't know, man. I mean, that's interesting, dude. Whereas Joe Rogan sometimes like peddles conspiracies. I don't know if Theo Von does. I say that because I don't want anyone in the chat to be like, I can't believe you guys or whatever. I did watch some of the clips from him talking to Bernie Sanders, and some of the stuff in particular, I'm like, oh yeah. So let's take a look.
Do you think that Kamala Harris is the best person to?
So let's look at this clip. And obviously, guys, I'm feeling Theo's sartorial choices in this one. You know, obviously, we don't even have to say it. Obviously. Okay, here we go.
Do you think that Kamala Harris is the best person to run against Donald Trump right now?
Well, she is the person, and
I know that people hate when I pause. What a response. It's not going to surprise you guys to know that Bernie Sanders is an American politician who, in terms of mainstream American politicians, he's someone who I have historically liked.
And that won't change probably, huh?
No, she'll be the Democratic candidate. And, you know, I've known Kamala for a number of years. Not best friends, but I've known her.
Mm-hmm.
She was in the Senate for a short period. She's very smart, and she's determined. I mean, above and beyond her views on the issues, which I, support most of them, not all. You got to give.
Oh, we got 666? Well, guys, it's Monday, so it's child sleeping, but six. We did it, guys. And the Luciferian call is a call for freedom and nothing else. I spent last week and early this week. So this is a 666 thing. I'll tell you guys. I'm recording a video Wednesday that's like the philosopher react style thing where I kind of just like riff on some shit, and it's looking at James Lindsay's tweet thread about Kamala Harris being a Marxist Satanist witch and some of the Jordan Peterson stuff on Marx and Satan. So that's coming out. I'm filming it on Wednesday. That's there you go. That's going to be there. So let's go back to this. It is a funny thing to think about, having Bernie Sanders talk about Kamala Harris. I'm not saying this in like a necessarily critical way. I'm just describing history here. In 2020, there was a period for the first big chunk of the Democratic primary, for those of you who don't know, where Bernard Sanders was leading basically the entire time. He was way ahead of Joseph Biden, up through the Nevada primaries that he absolutely crushed. And he crushed the California primaries, lots of big states in the West. Kamala Harris had to drop out of the Democratic primary before the first vote because she had that little support. I don't know if anyone remembers watching those debates. She got absolutely dusted. The reason that Joseph Biden ended up being the candidate, and this is not conspiratorial, it's been verified. It's because Barack Obama led a behind-the-scenes campaign to get everyone else to drop out and coalesce support around Biden so that Bernie couldn't be president. So the reason why we ended up in the situation we're in right now is because Obama and co. didn't want a socialist from Vermont to potentially be president. So they made sure it was Biden, even though they knew he was old as shit. And because he was old as shit, he started to sundown in his presidency, which is why now the candidate is someone that no one really voted for. And Bernie goes on Theo Von's podcast.
Credit to somebody, a black woman, to move up the ladder. That ain't easy stuff. There's a lot of resistance to that. And
That's a good point.
she's persistent, she's strong, and I respect that. And, I think she'll be a good candidate. I was interested that Trump apparently backed out of a debate with her on ABC. And I wouldn't, I have debated her, as a matter of fact. She's tough.
She's tough. Was there a chance that you were going to get that nominate, or as an independent, can you get been plotted with the Democratic Party and put in?
No.
Was there even a call about it or anything?
No. I ran.
I like the vibe of someone like Theo Von who seems to ask this in a non-ideological way just because he's curious. Again, I don't know a lot about this guy, so don't get mad at us if I say like, "Oh, he has a cool vibe," and then you're like, "Really? You do? Do you know that he said this thing?" Like, I don't know.
Sometimes there's like an intimidation present because it's like you don't know the ways the system works, so don't ask. And he doesn't hold that within him. He's just like, well, how would this happen?
Yeah. I think we need some more of that because we have very little curiosity instead of like a childlike openness to asking questions.
In 16, I ran against Hillary Clinton, and I ran in 20.
Yeah, I remember, and I felt like you didn't get treated fairly, to be honest with you.
I didn't, and that's what happens when you take on the establishment. So
Yeah.
what happened is we won the first 3 primaries, and then
Can I note that next to Bernie Sanders, I'm pretty sure is a box of Taco Bell tacos. Hold on, I'm gonna send it back up just a split. On the right, on the table next to him, you guys see there's the Smart Water. Doesn't that look like tacos or nachos? The box that says "Getting Warmer."
It says "Getting Warmer." It's got the purple and white color scheme. I don't see a logo though.
I think Bernie has white guy tacos next to him. This rules. Oh my God, we didn't even plan this, guys. Truth that God is real.
The establishment got very, very nervous, and there were a whole lot of candidates in the Democratic primary, and they said, "Hey, it'd be a good idea if you all dropped out. Let Joe Biden be the one candidate." People rallied around him.
And do they call? Is there a call that you get?
If you didn't hear that, it's just important to know that that's like a real thing that happened. And I actually remember this because the last big rally that Bernie Sanders had before the day of reckoning came, it was in March of 2020. Great month, March of 2020. I was doing some, I did some canvassing that morning for Bernie Sanders, had some celebratory afternoon beverages. Then I went to the LA Convention Center. There was a Bernie rally there. I think it was like 50,000 people showed up. It was hosted by Dick Van Dyke and Sarah Silverman. We had music from Public Enemy. There's a bunch of other like cool people that came out as well. But it was awesome. It was one of like the coolest political events I've been to in my life, where I was just in a warehouse or convention center full of people, very diverse LA crowd. Never thought I'd see Dick Van Dyke and Public Enemy on the same stage. And I remember I got in an Uber that night afterwards that was like zebra patterned and had a disco ball on the inside. But I was like, whatever, that's the vibe, man. I went to a Thai restaurant, had some good food. And it was like literally the next day that everyone else dropped out and put their support around Biden. And then the next thing that happened was the South Carolina primary. I'm going to think about this till I die. Jim Clyburn, congressperson from South Carolina, basically made the call for everyone to support Biden. That primary turned out to just be a Biden versus Sanders thing. Biden won that, and that kind of turned the energy. But in my humble opinion, the dumbest thing about that is like, who cares about the South Carolina primary? That's a red state that's always going red. So why does it matter that Biden won that? Shouldn't have done anything, because Bernie won some of the big blue states, and he even won a purple state like Nevada. It's just so insane. Sorry, guys. I'm going to think about it for the rest of my life, but I'm not political. I just liked him because he's from Vermont.
And it's like you're not going to move forward. Is it just like news articles? Like how does the establishment
what happens
work?
is I won the popular vote in Iowa. I won the New Hampshire primary. I won the Nevada primary, and those were the first 3. And then front pages of the New York Times, Democratic establishment very nervous. Bernie Sanders could win the whole. We were doing very well in the
Yes, he was cooking.
polls. And I think behind the scenes, people thought, there were like 15 different candidates, and they were splitting up the vote. And that's how I was not necessarily getting over 50%. I was getting more than other people. So I was on the way to victory. And they said, look, Bernie shouldn't be the candidate for a variety of reasons. We don't want him the candidate, drop out. And then on one day, a lot of people, 1 or 2 days, a lot of people dropped out. It was Joe Biden and me, and Joe had a lot of support, and all these people came behind him, and that's what happened. Let me also say, having said that, Biden is a friend of mine. I think he has done a very good job over the last 3.5 years. And I'm working very hard to see that Kamala is elected.
I got to say that Bernie's like classy, maybe to a fault sometimes, and how he still rides for Biden. I guess what I've heard historically is that Biden was one of the only people for years that kind of like treated Bernie like a serious politician when he was like the weird independent socialist, and that Sanders has a sense of loyalty about that, which I appreciate. Also, for those of you who don't know, the American political system works as well. So this primary happens, right? And the way it worked out was they basically called the primary before like New York voted. New York, I think, is what, the second or third most populous state in America. So when we have these primary elections, what normally happens is the call is made after a certain number of states because it's not all on the same day, it's spread out. So the way we democratically pick candidates for one of our two parties often doesn't even involve everyone having the chance to vote for those candidates. It's a sweet system we got, guys. If you are starting a nation state and you're looking for a system to model your system off, I recommend checking that out. Yeah, Chris Maverick is noting this as well, that the South Carolina primary being the decider is fucking nuts. Yeah, it's a very small red state. And to be clear, we're not saying that South Carolina is bad. We're not saying that voters in South Carolina are bad. South Carolina is a cool state. There's some nice stuff there, but it's not the state that should tip the needle for who gets to represent the Democratic Party. Let's watch the last few seconds of this.
Elected our next president.
All right, cool. Should we watch one more? So there's the one on medical debt or big pharma. Let's watch one more just to kind of, and guys, there's the whole thing is over on Theo Vaughn's channel. So let's watch a few more seconds of this from the Now This feed. But you can go check out the whole thing if you want. Again, this is my first exposure really to Theo Vaughn, but the guy's wearing a dead shirt and talking to Bernie. So yeah, I'm going to be into it. You know what I mean? It's sort of like a dog whistle for my subject type.
Bankruptcy in America is medical debt, right?
Yes.
Unbelievable. Like people can't, people, they go in, they don't even know the cost. They sign an agreement that they're going to be billed later, right? It's like, and then they get the bill and it's astronomical and they spend the rest of their life literally a slave to the healthcare system.
Okay, so this guy's cooking. This is reminding me of hearing Theo Vaughn talk about this. Again, I have no idea what this guy's politics are or what his like thing is. But I've had this thought before. Curious what people think about this. I might have said this on stream before. I'm definitely curious what like parents think of this. So I had this thought one day that like I'm gonna have to at a certain point like teach my daughter how the world works and how stuff like work works. And I was thinking one day I'm gonna have to tell her. She's gonna be like, Dad, why do you spend like 50 hours a week on the little computer and you go to the place and you do all this? What's the point of this? And I'm going to have to say, well, sweetie, here's the way the world works. To live, to have a house, to eat food, to, do all the stuff we like to do, we have to have money. This is basically these tokens. But you only get the tokens if you go to a place or sit at the computer and you do work for other people because you don't have the tokens. Someone else has the tokens. And then you have to give most of your life to these other people for the tokens. And then she might say, well, Dad, what happens if you don't have a job for a bit? Well, then sweetie, you run out of tokens. Well, Dad, surely they're not going to just let you die. Well, no, because if you run out of tokens, then you don't really matter. And there's not a lot of systems in place to help that. Now, in some cases, there's a thing called debt, and debt happens when we need tokens, but we don't have enough. So someone else gives us some, but then we owe them more of those tokens. And that chases around. The whole point here was to say that when I think about describing the economic system that structures our lives to a child, it sounds insane. And I could imagine a well-natured child being like, that doesn't sound fair. And that's kind of what it reminds me of hearing Theo Vaughn here. And I truly mean this in a positive way, describe this, because I feel like he's not speaking ideologically, because often we speak about politics, someone brings their own ideological presuppositions into the situation and we use those to judge it. But it seems like he's just saying, it seems insane that you would go to the doctor for something that you need to live. You would then have debt because of the thing you needed to live, and then that debt would structure the rest of your existence. Sounds insane. Now, of course, some people would say, well, we live in a free market system, and healthcare isn't a right, it's a privilege, and if you don't have a job, then you probably don't deserve that privilege. And even if you do have a job and you have a bigger copay or it's an elective surgery, then you need to be able to pay for that because, eh, all that to say is I like this vibe that we
Or
have in
two
play here. And I also think it's a vibe that's like non-ideological. Sometimes people want to say like, do we talk about politics much or do whatever? But I kind of like the vibe of empathy and curiosity at play here and would like us to embody that. I also think everyone who's on our channel should have to wear long sleeve
through the medical billing system or the dealing with their insurance, and not to mention they're sick. So the added stress of that, it just feels like like something so much better could be done.
Theo, that is so pathetic and so sick and so cruel. I mean, we did a hearing on this, and roughly speaking, and I know the viewers will think this is like hard to believe. Half of the people who are dealing with cancer, now cancer is a terrible disease, right? Your point.
100%.
You're struggling for your life, right?
Bad, yeah,
Maybe
bad.
you make it, maybe you don't. You got radiation, chemotherapy, bad stuff, right?
Bad
Half
stuff.
the people who get cancer treatment either end up in bankruptcy or utilizing all of the financial resources of the family. They're depleted. They're broke. So imagine that. You go into the hospital, doctor says, Theo, sorry, you got cancer, terrible. You're worried to death, right? Your friends, your family are worried. And then on top of that, what are you worried about? Oh my God, what, I'm going to have to sell my house? Or I have to go bankrupt in order to pay medical bills? That
Not good, guys. And I'm not saying that God's not real. Maybe God's real. Maybe heaven's real. But if God's not real and heaven's not real, and we only have one life on this earth, that's pretty intense that someone, just to save that life, to do what they love and be with the people they love, have to then wreck themselves financially. I might try to watch the rest of that later. I think that's pretty interesting. If anyone in the chat knows more about Theo Von or that vibe, then there you go. And I think too, if anyone's watching this, and I know some people get mad at the channel, some people get mad at me because I obviously I ruined that for that. Yeah, Sean Harriman makes the comment about dead in fashion. Sean, I had this moment where I got bitter when Hassan was wearing online ceramic shirts, like a photo shoot, and it was like cool. And then someone left a comment and they were like, oh, Michael's wearing a shirt like what Hassan wears. And I wanted to be like, dog, I bought this shirt from a van on the lot of a show. No disrespect to Hassan Piker, who could wreck my ass and also makes cool shit. But I was like, oh, man. But I think when people get mad about politics and how I ruined the channel and made it Wisecrack and stuff like that, I just like that vibe of just like trying to earnestly and curiously ask why the world is the way it is and think about it, not from an objective point of view. Everyone always wants to talk about like being objective, but just from a basic human point of view, want to go to some emails real quick. Let's see. So this is from our friend Aoife Hilton. Aoife said, watching the stream late as usual, thought you might appreciate learning more about how Australia is reacting to our Olympic breakers' performance. Sent an article from the Australian Broadcasting Company, which is like their PBS. Here, I'm going to shoot that link to the chat. So we did talk about Ray
That is
Gun
insane.
last week. It's very funny calling this person Ray Gun. Someone said Hassan can what? Oh, wreck me. It's a colloquial way of saying beat the shit out of me. So, there's an article on the Ray Gun thing. Then Eve said, you mentioned on the stream that Australia is a racist country and there, quote, are no black people there. That's why I like Eva, because, she'll intellectually wreck me when we deserve it. She said, Australia is an incredibly racist country. It's true. We don't give as much fatal power to police as the U.S. does, so there are less blatant killings and attacks, but we do have damning figures of people of color dying in custody and the most racist immigration policy of any developed nation on the planet. The statement that there are no black people here is not true. Our First Nations people have a history in Australia going back over 70,000 years, and many consider themselves black people. However, Australia is an incredibly racist country, so our First Nations people are disproportionately forced into homelessness and then moved on until tourists wandering around Melbourne may not see any of the traditional custodians of the land they're standing on. So I understand your family friend's experience. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So good to get an Australian perspective on things there. God, there's a question that's really good, which maybe I'll save for Wednesday. Let's see. Maybe I'll save the rest of these. Got some good video recommendations. Yeah, and thank you for the headphone recommendations. I did make a call. I know everyone's really concerned, like, what headphones did Michael get? I purchased headphones this weekend. I'm happy with them thus far. I only used them for the first time yesterday. So, oh wow, Ann Porkins. Oh wow. Well, guys, as always, you can hit us up at wisecracklive666@gmail.com. Would love, 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 as always, to get thoughts on anything you want us to talk about on the show, things you'd like to see us watch or read. If you are interested in learning more about philosophy stuff, check out the Patreon, in particular, the Wisecrack University level, where we're doing a reading group on Byung-Chul Han's Psychopolitics. John, I didn't go XM4, and I didn't go XM4 because of the microphone. John, I watched at least 8 hours of videos of people testing out the XM4 microphone, and I needed something that I can use for meetings because I spent a lot of time on meeting and the mic had to work. John, I'm so sorry I didn't get the XM4. Please, John, don't hate me for not getting the XM4s. Although there's a big sale in the XM4, so if you do need headphones and you don't need a good microphone, get Sony XM4s and make John happy. Oh, that's nice that they found it. Okay, see you later, John. But check out the Patreon if you want a reminder that our stream partner is Yes Please Coffee. If you are a coffee drinker, check out Yes Please. I am confident that if you order some Yes Please coffee and you make it properly, whatever your brewing method is, it'll probably be the best coffee you've ever had at home. I'm not going to say it's better than coffee you get out where a professional barista does it, but I would be shocked if you weren't like, holy shit, this is some of the best coffee I've ever had. If you don't feel that way, hit me up and hit them up, and I'm sure we can figure out how to make it right to some extent. This week we have, what is this week's video? Guys, I always forget. Theme parks. Oh yeah, because Henry's losing his mind. Megan, so we have a video coming out on theme parks and kind of how the logic of the theme park is being used to shape our cities. The video also includes some anecdotes about the time I got arrested at Universal Studios. So true story that I got arrested. We got those XM5s. See, XM5s are what I wanted to get, but they're just too expensive. Now I feel, man, everyone's talking about these Sonys. God damn it. But we're talking about that. Filming a video this week on James Lindsay, Jordan Peterson, Satan, Marks, Kamala Harris, all this sort of fun stuff. And we're working hard on getting things ready for the second channel. So as I told you last week, if you want to now, you can head over to our Wisecast page. It's our old channel. That's going to be converted into Wisecrack 2. Over on Wisecrack 2, we're going to talk about media stuff exclusively. So video games, movies, TV shows. And then our main channel, we're going to keep it more on kind of like cultural, social stuff. Our streams are going to stay here. But then over on the second channel, we're going to bring back Show Me the Meaning. Our movie show and stream, Austin and Raymond are coming back. Supposedly, Lux is going to be starting a sort of stream, maybe more video game focused, that Henry's going to be on as well. Things are up in the air, but that should be happening there. So, if you're someone who hates woke crack, you should enjoy that. And just note, we do have a video on the channel from last week, if you haven't seen it yet, on Alien Romulus. We got some money to make it from Disney, but I think we did a pretty good job of making like a sponsored video that talks about some cool stuff. It gets into cosmic pessimism. It gets into the way in which, space has been co-opted by sketchy billionaires and is no longer a place of magic and wonder, but a place of oppression and horror. So please do check that out if you haven't seen already. Ramrod started reading Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer has some good ideas, but it was a little intense, and I think maybe overworks some of the negative emotionality into his work, but he's a very important person. Yes, we will have gaming streams. Wisecrack 8, the Ocho, is coming soon, so don't worry. Okay, guys, shout out to all of you for hanging out with us. It was a great Monday. We didn't even talk about your case of the Mondays, and it's because I wanted you to have a nice last day. It's bad. You're not coming back from it. Your case of the Mondays is terminal. If you want your case of the Mondays to be cured, you're going to have to get all your money together. You're going to have to sell your house. You're going to go into debt. So either way, you're screwed. So that's why I didn't want to say anything until right now, because that's how bad it is for you. Oh my God, Desi, thank you so much. And Desi said that you should donate for Bernie instead of buying enough food for groceries. I wanted that hope for a better world too. I'll never be over it. Desi, I'll say this now, I'm supposedly not political. But yeah, I spent like every weekend morning for months of my life getting up and knocking on doors in the heat all over Los Angeles, in the state of Nevada, all sorts of stuff, just to try to make it happen. And it can be dejecting when we think something is possible and it's not. But I guess the thing, Desi, is like we can't give up hope, right? Because hope isn't just some idealist concept. Hope is materialist in so much as hope can shape our activities as we work towards the horizon of something else. So but thank you so much. I honestly, your super chat almost makes me want to tear up because it's incredibly kind of you, and this stuff really helps a lot. So thank you so much. Someone said Michael isn't watching. What am I not watching? Okay. Thank you so much. We will see you guys on Wednesday. Shouts to Desi, the overarching, metaphysically deistic, cosmic ruler of the chat. We'll see you guys Wednesday.
See y'all Wednesday. Have a good Monday.
Nevada.